I have a quote for you to start today's Friday Roundup. This is from Tim LaHaye in his book, The Act of Marriage, about the wedding night. Ready? You're not ready, but here goes. Their maidenly inhibitions and misconceptions compel them to lie on their backs and allow the vigorous young husbands to satisfy themselves. Yeah, that's a big ew. And I shared that this week on Instagram and Facebook, and lots of conversations about it. And I want to talk about it today on our Friday Roundup. But you may notice I am by myself. That is because my husband is away working this week, and Rebecca is sick as a dog, and I didn't want to catch it. And so you're going to just have me talking at you for a couple of minutes here. Here's why I want to talk about that passage from The Act of Marriage. So, a big thing that happened in the last week was that our journal article was published in the Journal of Sexual Medicine. And Joanna's been working behind the scenes on a lot of different peer-reviewed articles that we have in various stages of the submission process. And this one got in, so we're so excited about that. It's our second big article that's been published. And what we were really looking at was the etiology of sexual pain. So how does sexual pain happen? Why does sexual pain happen? What does it look like? Specifically among evangelical women. And we were using the data set for our book, The Great Sex Rescue. And I'm going to try to explain this without getting too technical. But one of the things that we were saying is that our data found that when you wait for marriage for sex, her chance of experiencing sexual pain with obstructed penetration increases. I mean, her chance of experiencing sexual pain increases too, but especially with obstructed penetration. And we were looking at how sexual pain with obstructed penetration was actually more likely for people who waited and believed certain messages about sex, specifically the obligation sex message, even than people who had been abused. So people who had been abused had high rates of sexual pain or more likelihood towards sexual pain. But people who grew up in this purity culture or just internalized all these really bad messages often had sexual pain with obstructed penetration. So what that means is that intercourse isn't possible. And so I was talking about this because, of course, when you say that, people get their backs up, right? They're like, oh, so you're saying that we should just tell people to have sex before they're married, or oh, so you're saying that we should just throw the Bible out because it doesn't agree with science. It's like, there's another way to look at this, which is that maybe we should just teach people how to do the wedding night differently, so that they don't end up with this stupid quote from Tim LaHaye. So let me introduce you to my quotes. When we were writing The Great Sex Rescue, we created this spreadsheet of awful quotes. I have 167 of them. Every quote that we saw that was really bad, we put it in this spreadsheet from different books, and then some of them made it into the book, some of them didn't, but they all illustrate different things. And we've done the same thing with other books that we've written, like She Deserves Better. We had a whole ton of quotes from all the problematic books for teen girls. And yeah, I just save all the stuff so that we have it written. And so I decided this week that I would just share one at random. And when I opened my spreadsheet, that was the first one I saw. And I'm going to read it to you again. This is Tim LaHaye talking about a woman's experience of her wedding night. Their maidenly inhibitions and misconceptions compel them to lie on their backs and allow the vigorous young husbands to satisfy themselves. And that book is 50 years old this year, and it is still being sold. It's gone through 4 different revisions. There is no need for this book to still be in print. The only reason this book is still in print is because the publisher is making money off of it, because there's no more cost to it. All the costs have been paid long ago, so every copy that's sold is pure profit. So you understand why publishers want to keep publishing it. But this book also calls a man who raped his wife equally unhappy as his rape victim. This book also decries a woman and her bitterness because she doesn't want to have sex anymore with the man who beat their children so badly, even as they were teens, that they moved out and won't talk to her anymore. Like, this is such a terrible... The book even says vaginismus doesn't exist, which is exactly what we were studying in our peer-reviewed paper. So the book is terrible. It should not be in print, but it is. And I wish they would take it out of print. But I shared this quote on Instagram, and I mean, I don't think I've ever had as many reactions as I did after that. All kinds of people sent like the puke emoji and everything. But one person said, but isn't that the way things normally are? Like, isn't that the way it is if you grew up in purity culture, that she does just lie there and let him satisfy himself? And I was like, yes, But here's why we didn't like the quote. It isn't just that it's archaic language. It's that this is what he was presenting as what is normal. And even though they do talk in the book about, how to make sure that she can reach orgasm too, the problem is that it is presenting it as normal for a couple to have sex when she isn't comfortable. So they have sex because she doesn't know what's going on, she's not comfortable, and he just satisfies himself, as opposed to saying, that's really, really wrong. And this is why we have more sexual pain disorders in the evangelical church, is because people are having sex when she's not comfortable. And if you think about it, the wedding night is absolutely obligation sex on steroids, right? Like, you can't say no on your wedding night. You've been told your whole life, oh, the wedding night is the most magical night of your life. This is what you're waiting for. So you feel like you have to have sex. So the obligation sex message is huge on your wedding night. And even for people who are really looking forward to sex, there's a difference between really looking forward to it and having it as something you want, and then having it as something that you have to do, even when you're not comfortable. And that's what's happening with a lot of Christian women is, they get to that hotel room or that apartment or wherever they're spending their wedding night, and now they can't, this isn't something that they do naturally. It's an artificial timeline, is the way we talked about it in the paper. There's an artificial timeline. They have to do it now. They're not necessarily comfortable, but they've also been told their whole lives to prioritize the guy, because what are you told? You're told he has been waiting for this. He is going to explode. He is absolutely going to explode. He needs this. This is what he has been looking forward to forever. You've been looking forward to the wedding. He's been looking forward to the wedding night. And so it's like, no matter how uncomfortable you are, you assume he is more uncomfortable. You assume that his needs take precedence. And so no matter how she feels, it's like, well, we have to go ahead. And then is it any wonder that they can be greeted with sexual pain? And we found an incidence rate of about 23% among evangelical women, which is quite high. It's higher than the general population by about 2 to 2.5 times. And people with obstructed penetration at about 7%, which again is a lot higher than usual. So, there's all of these women who they wanted to have sex, a lot of them, but the way that we do the wedding night makes it so that her body says, okay, wait, this is a threat to me. This is something that I have to protect you from. And her body tenses up involuntarily. She's not doing it deliberately, but she can't stop it. And so that's where you need pelvic floor physiotherapists to help you how to take control of those muscles. Please read The Great Sex Rescue, because we talk about this in detail. And sometimes it's just knowing that, that obligation message isn't from God helps so much, because it looks like lack of autonomy is one of the key factors in sexual pain disorders. And women can feel that and can experience that, even if it's not coming from their husbands. This is a big thing that we discovered, is that it isn't necessarily that the husbands themselves are pressuring the wives to have sex, or that the husbands themselves are giving the obligation sex message. It's that she grew up her whole life hearing that this is what he needs, and she can't say no, and that this is huge for him. Do you remember that Josh Howerton video that went totally viral? I shared it on Twitter, and then I think it got like almost 2 million views, and several news organizations took it up. Incidentally, that's why I won't delete my Twitter account, even though I'm not there anymore. I'm over on Threads, but I feel like I have all these videos there that went viral, and if I delete my Twitter account, those are gone. So I still have my Twitter account. I'm just not ever there. But anyway, he said, like, on the wedding night, she's supposed to stand where he tells her to stand, do what he tells her to do, wear what he tells her to wear. Like, it is his wedding night. And when a pastor from the pulpit describes the wedding night as something which is the guys, not theirs together, that tells you what kind of culture that so many women are growing up in. And that's why, we have all these sexual pain disorders. And so our plea is not that we tell people, hey, go have sex whenever you want. It's that we tell people, hey, wait until you're married and aroused. Okay, figure out the arousal piece. Make sure that you're comfortable. Bring down the tension level so that this is something that which she truly wants to do and she's truly participating in, and her body is really ready for it. So get her comfortable, get her to know what's expected, learn how her body works before you try sex. And we do that in the Good Girl's Guide to Great Sex and the Good Guy's Guide to Great Sex. Please make those your bridal shower gifts, those two books, because they can be so helpful. And as we announced on the podcast yesterday, we have a Spanish version of that available now, at least the Good Girl's Guide. The Good Guy's Guide is still coming later this year. So you can get the Spanish version of the Good Girl's Guide to Great Sex too. So here's here's just a bit of a heads up. That's about our paper, which we got a lot of talk on social media about this week, and a lot of people accusing us of throwing out the Bible. And it's like, okay, wait, I have to do an aside here before I go to something else. It really bothers me when we share data that is just simply true and people then accuse us of throwing out the Bible because it doesn't align with what they think God's teaching is. It's like, that doesn't change the data, buddy. Like, the data is still the data, you know? Like, yes, women who wait for marriage have more sexual pain disorders than women who don't. That doesn't mean that we have to tell people to go have sex whenever they want. It just means that we have to be aware that the way that we are telling people to wait is hurting women, and we should care about that. Like, is it so hard to care about that? Or would you rather keep your idea of what the Bible is and ignore the data and ignore the fact that women are hurting? Like, it really bugs me. Anyway, that was my aside. I am planning on doing some stuff on social media, especially Instagram, where I start sharing some terrible messages. So I put it up yesterday morning. I said, hey people, give me a number between 1 and 169, because that's how many terrible quotes I have, and I will share that quote with you next. And so I said I would share the 26th quote, because yesterday was February 26th, and I will tell you, I think number 67 and number 67, I'll read it to you. I put this up on my Instagram stories yesterday. It said, this is from the book Every Heart Restored, which is written, it's part of the Every Man's Battle series by Steve Arterburn, and it's written by Fred and Brenda Stoker. And it says this, let's see, number 67. Because wives don't experience sexuality like men do, our whole sexual gig can really stretch our credibility with them at times. And this is in the context of a book that's written to wives whose husbands are addicted to porn or have sex addictions. So, because wives don't experience sexuality like men do. And it's so iconic. I mean, that isn't quite as icky as the other one, but the reason that I pulled this quote out is that this is a common theme through all the Every Man's Battle books. There's even a chapter in Every Man's Battle called Just by Being Male. And the whole quote, that's taken from a longer quote where it says, if you're looking for the reason for so much sexual sin among men, we got there naturally just by being male. In Every Heart Restored, Fred Stoker writes, men just don't have that Christian view of sex. So you see, what they're arguing is that God made men to objectify women. Okay, God created men to objectify women. That's what male sexuality is. And because women don't have that, then when women are confronted with men's sexuality, wow, they don't understand. It can stretch our credibility with them at times. So yeah, then women can go, wow, there's something wrong with you. And it's like, yeah, buddy, because there is something wrong with you, because God didn't create you to objectify anybody. And the fact that you guys got so many publishing contracts and managed to sell 4 million copies of your books, where the central message is that God created men to objectify women, and we shouldn't question why that is. Of course, men shouldn't do it. Yes, men should strive for purity, obviously, they say, but you still have to remember that that's how God made men. It's like, I'm just still astounded that nobody stood up and said, that's not Christian, and that's disgusting, and we have to stop. So that's what I'm here for. I'm here to say, let's stop that. Let's stop with this garbage. And if you want to follow along with more of my terrible quotes, please follow me on Instagram. Incidentally, it really helps if I have these different touch points where you're following me on YouTube, you're following me on Instagram, you're especially signed up for our email list. That's one of the most important ones because nobody can take that from me. But algorithms change all the time. It's often, I can lose people. So the more touch points you have, then the less chance I have of losing you. And that's really important to me because I want to keep telling you about our new stuff that's coming out, the new stuff that we're discovering. If you'll recall, last year our Facebook page was stolen and we had to start a whole new one from scratch. And incidentally, I have better engagement on this new one, so it ended up being the best thing for me. It just was total panic that week. But yeah, please join us on our email list. Join me on Instagram and you can follow along in the stories for more of these terrible quotes. And hey, if you know anyone Spanish, tell them that The Good Girl's Guide to Great Sex is now available in Spanish. So thanks for being here, and we'll see you again next week. Hopefully my daughter will be better and we'll be able to film something then.